Okay, Alan, so it would be really good to just understand a bit more about how you see the board and the council operating. And as I understand it, there are two members, or you're proposing that two members from each region or nation sit on the council. Is that a fair thing to do when some regions and nations are bigger than others?
Yeah, I think there's probably two questions there. One is why two per region and nation, and then the other one is it fair for two representatives from small regions and as well as large regions and nations? So why two to start with? If we just had one, then I think for a time all we would be doing is replicating the board as a council, and I don't think that would take us forward. So the idea is to broaden the representation, get more people from u3a's involved at this sort of level, and so the idea as well is to try to share some of the burden and help the existing people to share some of that responsibility through the regions within their region. It also provides cover for holidays and sickness and some continuity. The issue of large and small regions is really an issue of whether do we want to go for proportional representation. So I think it's something that I've not ruled out personally. I think it's something we might come back to in the future. Mm-hmm. But at the moment, I think it would probably be a step too far. This governance change is already a big step for the u3a movement, and I don't think that really people could cope with two big steps at the same time. So that's why we suggested really let's leave it as it is with the traditional representation of the same representation for all regions.
So how would those two representatives work together? And also, how would they talk to the u3a's in their region? How would they consult with the u3a's in their region or their nation?
So I think we can try and put some structure to it, first of all. So we can have formal reports, we can have formal agenda items. We would expect the representatives to consult with their u3a's, bring back a collective view to the council and be prepared to reflect those views at the council. I think we could make sure that there are reports after each council meeting so that the representatives report back to their constituents. So I think that formalised will help, but there will be a lot, I think, dependent on the type of representative, and I'm sure some will be hugely energetic and enthusiastic and committed, dedicated council members. Some perhaps will be less so. Some will be great communicators. Some perhaps might struggle with that. But that's human nature, isn't it?
So that's quite a big board. I mean, that's potentially sort of up to, say, 30 people.
The council.
The council, sorry.
Yeah.
That's quite a big council. So how will you go about managing that and achieving consensus? How can you do that with a grouping that big?
Well, first of all, I think we're only looking at 26 voting members. There'll be other people who might be in attendance, but the core of the council will be 26 people.
And would they be the people from the regions and nations then?
Yes.
They will be the only voting members?
There'll be one representative from Network Link, the chair of Network Link, but everybody else will be representing a region or nation. But I'm not sure the numbers are all that important. You can reach consensus, you can have a vote with 26 people as well as you can with 10 people. That's not the issue. I think a lot will depend on how the chair manages the council and the meetings. I think a lot will depend on how the representatives get comfortable with each other, how they respect each other's views and all of that. I would hope that will come over time. So I don't think the number is that much of an issue. In the pilot council, we've managed to a way of splitting people up into different groups so that they look at different subjects each, and that seems to have worked quite well. That may be an appropriate way of dealing with it on the council.
So I think I'm right in saying that legally the board are the trustees, so they're legally responsible for the charity. So what powers will the council actually have? What will be the relationship between the council and the board?
So you're quite right. The board legally has the overall responsibility for the organisation, and in the past, because the board has been the only body available within the movement, the board has tended to make lots of decisions that I don't think we have felt needed to be taken at that level. What we want to do is make sure that there's a structure in place that allows for the strategic aims, and for the budget to be developed into an annual business plan. That business plan will be approved by the board, and within that business plan there'll then be a need for lots and lots of decisions to be taken at different stages by different outfits, and a lot of those decisions I would expect to be taken by the council. You're probably aware that we're talking about introducing strategic implementation groups, and the idea there is that these groups of staff and volunteers will develop ideas. Those ideas will go to the council will decide whether they're the right sort of ideas that should be going forward or not, and if they are within the annual business plan, that there's already a budget for them, then the council can make the decisions and we should be getting on with things.
Okay, so can you give me an example of a decision the board might be making and an example of a decision the council might be making?
Well, perhaps a good example is the current 500k resolution. At the last AGM, there was a resolution passed that we should hit 500,000 members in 5 years' time. And there's an awful lot of work that goes into making that happen. And my belief is that type of work could and should be done by the council, by the strategic implementation groups, and the board naturally has the ultimate responsibility to go back to the AGM with progress reports about what's happening about the resolution, but the actual nitty-gritty about what's being done and how it's being done should be done by the council and the strategic implementation groups.
Well, that's really, really interesting information, Alan. It's good to have those. It's good to have those examples of where the decisions might be made. So I suppose my final question is, if this all goes through at the AGM, how will you know it's working? What opportunity will u3as have to feed back and to say whether it's working for them or it's not? How will you evaluate it?
Well, I don't think anybody will know how well it's working for some time, to be honest. This is brand new, so we're starting from scratch with it. And I think it's going to be at least 5 years before it's bedded in and before everybody can realistically say, yes, this is good or this was not a good idea. We built a formal review in after 3 years. And so in the same way that there's been a consultation process, getting views from u3as up to now about the concept, I would hope that there would be a similar consultation assessment process in 3 years' time, so that we can at least understand whether we're in the right direction or we're not in the right direction. Perhaps it might need tweaking here and there, perhaps some bits are working, some bits are not working, but that's really the response, the feedback that I would hope that we will get from u3as at that stage.
Okay, well thanks very much, Alan. It sounds like potentially a very big change, but I think that was a lot of useful information to help u3as to make their mind up. Thank you.